Good morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Monday, August 18th, the year of our Lord 2025, and this is Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Hope you all are doing well and had a wonderful weekend. The last weekend until late January without college football. So that's a reason to celebrate, right? To be happy. Um, Not too happy with the week zero schedule. I kind of feel like if you're going to play a week zero, give us more than one game. Just give us two, three, something like that. But it is a good game in Dublin this year. Iowa State versus Kansas State. Those games are always somewhat intriguing. Florida State, Georgia Tech actually told us a lot about last season as far as how the Seminoles year was going to go. And Georgia Tech, of course, was a surprise to a certain extent. Knocked off Miami, should have beaten Georgia. Um, I think we knew Haynes King was going to be a baller, and they're going to be able to run the ball. And, so I learned a lot watching that game about the ACC last season. And this year's two ranked teams, Iowa State, Kansas State, two good coaches. I think that's something that this game hopefully will kind of, people will recognize it that Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, Matt Campbell at Iowa State do as good a job as anybody. And both those teams will be competitive in a wide open Big 12. But this is not a podcast that talks about Big 12 football. We'll talk about that, JC and Morgan, and on the shows later this week. Other than that, Kansas sort of relevant to Gamecock fans because they play Missouri this year. So you get a gauge on the Tigers. They're also very well coached. They open a new stadium against Fresno State. Stanford of the ACC goes to Hawaii. Hawaii always plays one team. Hawaii's stadium, it's temporary. It looks like a high school field right now, bleachers and all that. But Hawaii and Northwestern have like a weird setup, both getting new stadiums. Other than that, some FCS matchups. HBCU matchup looks pretty intriguing in Atlanta. I think North Carolina Central and Southern are playing on the FCS level, but it's just, I don't know. It's not even an appetizer. It's like, I don't know. It's like like bring pickles out and it's an appetite. I think if you're going to have it, just, have two or three games, give us a triple header. It doesn't have to be anybody great. I mean, games along the line of Iowa State, Kansas State would be fine. Anyway, that's getting started this week, so that's a reason to celebrate. The Gamecocks had their second and final big scrimmage. School's starting, so what'll happen? Camp will close. The coaches are going to get depth chart together, decide who to rep for the game. Start working on Virginia Tech game simulation week, according to Shane Beamer. They kind of just go through and do things during the week like they're going to do during the game week next week. So the prep will be there for that. Gonna have a different schedule this week on coffee. I have to have a colonoscopy, folks. I'm at that age. I had one when I was younger, in my 30s, early 30s, but it's time to go again, being 48. That's the only time they could schedule it in. And I wasn't about to schedule it during the season, so I'm going in Thursday for that. I think we're probably not going to have a coffee Thursday. Going to try to do one Friday if the daggone medicine will wear off and I'm not groggy and all that. But the last time I took one or had one done, it wasn't a 2-day recovery. I came home, ate some Zaxby's because you can't eat before you do that, and took a nap and I was fine. So I should be back Friday, obviously. Going to try to minimize that. No show on Thursday, though. Inside the Gamecocks, the show will not be on Thursday. Going to try to get Alex Jones in for Smorgasbord another day this week. Later today, Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show, Pat DeMarco, Mike Morgan in with JB. It's Mad Dog Monday on the show. We'll have another great episode. Also, check out thebigspur.com for all the scrimmage tidbits. VIP membership, if you pay in full, comes with Paramount Plus. Don't forget that on thebigspur.com. So rolling right along here. I talked last week about positivity in the preseason and how I know it's probably nerve-wracking for some because you're used to hearing positions of concern. It's a position that they may struggle. what's the realistic outcome? And you can't tell because most of the time, since I've been intensely following South Carolina preseason football, there's massive concern about a group. Um, most of the time, it's pretty well founded in that spot is a weakness on the team, or does not have the most positive season. But it's usually not as bad as people think. And I think because the offseason mindset in college football is, and I'm including myself in this. I'm not browbeating anybody. And sometimes I worry it sounds like that I'm like, you should think this way and think this. No, I'm actually, I say it because I think it. And I try to kind of find a better way for me to think and just passing it along with that and kind of looking at it from all angles. So, and nobody said anything to me about it. I was thinking about that over the weekend when I was swimming. I was like, well, maybe I should kind of tell the audience that, hey, I don't know. I'm not a know-it-all here. And I'm not trying to tell anybody how to think or feel or all that. Now, the difference is if, people are out there on X damaging the program, that's a little bit different. Uh, but as far as being nervous or whatever, it's pretty natural to do. But most of the time, the stuff we're all worried about, it's not as bad. Gamecocks end up playing well and winning their share of games or whatever. In 2023, going into after 2022, the issue with the offensive line, and I said this a couple of times, and everybody kind of said it a couple of times, was, well, they got some guys coming back that have played a lot of football, but this group collectively needs to have its best year. I said the same thing about the defensive line last year. Like guys like Tonka and TJ had to have and they did by a mile. And that the offensive line in 2023 could not withstand injuries. Well, we saw what happened. And so it was an issue all season, starting with the beginning of the year. By the way, speaking of 2023, hats off to Spencer Rattler, who played well in his preseason game yesterday. Beautiful passes, very inspired performance. He's not, once again, does not have any blocking, so I feel bad for the guy. But really good performance by Spencer. And Spencer plays his heart out. You can tell that guy, for all the crap people talked about him coming out of high school, about some stupid documentary. The guy loves football and he plays hard, and you can tell. And he's out there handling his business and not worried about the deficiencies of his team. He's trying to win games, and he did the same thing at South Carolina. So, hats off to him. I was happy to see that yesterday with the Saints. So hats off. But anyway, you go into a season, and most of the time, the concern is always a 10, 9 or 10 by all of us. And usually you should be concerned at about a 5 or 6, you know. And a lot of that's because you don't know. I mean, other teams, the teams you play, are going through the same thing. And you have this insulated solo prep, secret prep almost for the sport. And it's you kind of hunker down and away you go. And you're just kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool. And you got to go play games. So there's reasons for that. And there's reasons for a lot of overreaction. There's reasons maybe for some underreaction, I think. Sometimes I think what happens more frequently is that there's a surprisingly deficient position out there. I know that happened with the defense in 2018. Of course, there were injuries. Injuries a lot of the times, folks. By the way, there were some injury rumors floating around out there. It doesn't look like they're true about Sean Murphy on the World Wide Web. It's funny how that happens, but you normally, injuries do play a factor, and you can ask anybody around the SEC. That's normally it. They talk about it being a game of attrition. I don't think we talk about that a lot because I think that there's some superstition in there. You don't want to jinx a team. Oh, well, they got to stay healthy. But Heck, I guess talking about the offensive line before the 2023 season needing to be healthy did jinx the Gamecocks. So maybe I should shut up. But injuries do play a factor. But sometimes there's surprising spots where you're like, oh man, there's always things to fix. But there's been a lot of positivity out there this preseason. It's been one of the more optimistic preseasons I can remember since the Spurrier era. Definitely, as far as what the roster looks like. And that's really what it's all about, and all that. So the scrimmage, defense, overall was ahead of the offense the first scrimmage, and you always want your offense to fight back. And I don't think they had to do much fighting back because it's not like the offense had a bad first scrimmage. Don't be alarmed about the defense, in that situation. But offense did really, really well. I think what you're seeing is kind of the passing game really start to click with LaNorris Sellers. I think Mike Shula's done a fantastic job with him. I had three different people tell me over the weekend it's the best the offense has looked under Beamer in the preseason since he's been here. So that's good. That's good because the offense last year wasn't bad. When all was said and done, it did get off to an iffy start, so to speak. So hey, we'll see. Mike Shula, really not a surprise. LaNorris Sellers has taken a jump. Anytime you go into your second year of doing something in college football, you tend to do that. LaNorris Sellers has always been a capable passer. All the crap that talks about he's not a good passer. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you don't really understand what you're talking about there, because the guy can definitely throw the ball. It's a matter of evolving within the passing game, like most young quarterbacks have to do. You have to go do something over and over before you get good at it in this sport. Very few are just good right away. And even if they're good right away, they're not great at this position. It's always that second year when you take a step forward as a starter with the complexities of the passing game and all that good stuff. Mike Shula has a long track record of developing guys. He did a really good job last year. It wasn't all Dowell Loggins. Mike Shula kind of was the personal quarterback whisperer for LaNorris Sellers last year, and you saw how much better he got. So that's good because when you can find open guys and you have better receivers and guys are catching the ball and you can execute, and that's going to be important. I think against Virginia Tech with their losses in the secondary, as best you can scout a team with so many good players and two new coordinators, maybe that's something they can exploit throwing the football at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in less than 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens, but that's been a big storyline. You always want your great players to be performing great at a high level, and LaNorris definitely has this preseason. So it's been good. It's been good with that, and there's a lot of hope for the passing game this year. South Carolina was okay last year throwing the football. They weren't as bad as maybe some teams that have a revolving door at wide receiver, a lot of new players, and a first-time starter quarterback can be. Thank you to Josh Simon and to those rotating receivers and to Sellers himself for that. But I think that there was improvement that could be made, obviously, so Carolina can be a little more balanced on offense. And that's what you want, because I think we know he can run the ball. I think we know he can do damage on the ground. I think if the offensive line blocks, the backs can get yardage. Hopefully Rasul Faison is one of those. But I think that South Carolina on offense last year, and I think what teams are going to try to do is force Sellers to be patient and throw the football. And, all the stuff Illinois did with their defense last year that gave Carolina some trouble in the Citrus Bowl. And like I said, I was told that film's been out there, and that's all well and good. It's a bowl game. I don't think I would hitch my wagons, especially with a team. Now, look, the coordinator Carolina's going to have this year was calling the plays in the bowl, and there were some wrinkles here and there he put in, but this is his offense. So I don't know necessarily that I would bank on, oh, Carolina's just not going to be, Sellers just isn't going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to execute against that defense. I don't think that's smart football. And the idea is if you're the Gamecocks, if Virginia Tech comes out and tries to do it, or Vandy kind of does that on defense anyway, or Missouri, whoever, you got to make them pay. If there was one defense that could stop an offense consistently through scheme alone, everybody would run it. You know, there's a reason everybody doesn't drop 8 into coverage. The other part of that is if you have a big offensive line, you just run the ball. You know, if you're dropping that many guys, you got 5-on-3, boom. And if you have backs that can make people miss, that could be even better. I mean, your Spurrier's teams, they used to there were some schools that did that. If you remember the 06 Clemson game, Carolina came back and won, a lot like the 2022 game, by the way. Spurrier Carolina ran the ball well against them. Clemson kind of played back, and because they could get pressure at the time with their front, pretty good. But through some kind of, short little passes and running the ball, Carolina didn't really go downfield a lot that day. That Carolina went up and down the field on them. And Spurrier's a big old soft zone. That's what he called it. So if you do that, you got to make people pay. And based on the scrimmage, both scrimmages, LaNorris Sellers looks like he's equipped to do that. Shane Beamer even mentioned it in the press conference. Isaiah Augustov, the transfer from Colorado, the newcomer guy, had another good scrimmage. He's coming along, so he may be an oar on the depth chart after Faison, if Faison starts, or if it's Attaway, he may be an oar. Matthew Fuller, a young running back, also playing pretty doggone good football this year in the preseason. Jordan Howell's done some nice things. That room is probably going to be fine at the end of the day, Faison or no Faison. I don't have an update on that. At this point, it's comical that it's taking this long. But we'll see what happens. There were some rumors, chatter, I think on Friday about him being cleared or close to cleared. I can tell you this, nothing's really changed, with regards to the confidence level at South Carolina about this. There's been confident people the entire time that it would happen. I've been confident myself the whole time. I'm still confident. I just, it's kind of like waiting at the DMV or like I said, the deli when you get that number. And so it's frustrating. And I'm pretty patient with these types of things myself. But at this point, I'm still like, what in the world's going on? So hopefully he gets cleared, but we'll see kind of how all that shakes out. But Isaiah Augustov's been doing some really good things. That a friend of mine was talking the other day. He's like, he makes me like a gamer because that's 2 straight scrimmages where, very, very high praise for that guy. Defensively, well, I'll stick with the offense. Receivers are playing very well. The freshmen, right now, if I had to circle 2 freshman receivers that would play, I'm probably going like definitely. Now, I think more than 2. Definitely, though, I'd go with Donovan Murph and Brian Rowe. And then, maybe Pup Sellers, Malik Clark still in that mix. I believe, though, and I'll have a projected depth chart out either today or tomorrow for VIP members of thebigspur.com. I do believe, though, that the 3 starters are very, very likely going to be Harbor, Jared Brown, and Mazio Bennett, with Vendrivius Jacobs also in the hunt for that. I think the veterans have gotten they've improved enough to where I think they've held off the freshmen, but the freshmen are going to play. They're going to rotate 5 or 6. So if you take the 4 veterans and then add 2 right now, in my opinion, it would be Murph and Rowe. But maybe Sellers and Clark. Lex Cyrus could factor into the return game. Jordan Gitteron has gotten better every day and is physically ready to go. He may not play much this year because of his youth, but at the end of the, I have high hopes for him. There's a lot to like about that guy. He's just young, just a young. He's my stepson's age, already in college football. And if you look at him physically, from the time he arrived from Ridgeview in December till now, man, good Lord. So high hopes for all those guys, and they're all like team first guys, competitive guys. That's there's something to be said about that. And that's part of the reason the passing game during the preseason has been good. Part of that, and a stacked group of tight ends with Michael Smith, Brady Hunt, Jordan Dingle, Maurice Brown, who could be a lead blocker, and some two back sets. I mean, there's some pieces there. And the offense's success this weekend, I was told, definitely the offensive line was part of that. They look in practice play at times like a SEC. I don't want to say an SEC offensive line because just about everybody in the league most of the time is. Yeah, I mean, look, Florida and Texas A&M are supposed to be the two best offensive lines in the league. You watch their games this year; they will inevitably run up against a defensive line that makes them look bad. But Carolina's physical appearance and hopefully the play in games, it looks similar. I mean, it's the biggest offensive line Carolina's had that I can remember. I can't remember one this big. I mean, you're talking 325, 330, 330, 330, depending on who's in the game. There's still some battles there at right tackle and left guard, but we'll see kind of how all that shakes out. And they're deep. I think they can rotate 8 or 9 in the football game. Offensive lines don't normally do that, but that's part of it. People want to know why Trevon Ball didn't play last year, myself included. I was like, why don't you just move him to left guard? Left guard bothered me a lot last year. Right guard bothers me now too, that I've gone back and watched some of Torricelli Simpkins plays. It's feast or famine last year. I still hope he makes the Saints roster though. Love Torricelli Simpkins. It's a great story. And he did make some fantastic plays last year. It was all SEC, but there were some times he struggled. But Trevon Ball, the truth always comes out, right? The things we don't see. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Trevon Ball and Tree last offseason were dealing with injuries, didn't really get the full offseason workout in. And then lo and behold, because Tro played, I think 80 something snaps and was on special teams after starting the year before out of necessity. He played at 335, but his body fat percentage he thought was a little high, and this is what you want in your program, self-starters, folks that are going to recognize it and put in the work to change it and change their habits and stuff to that's a very team-focused plan. And so he had an interview with John Whittle, an article on the Big Spur, which I think you can read for free, and talked about going from 32% body fat to 19. He's still 335 pounds. Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director, I guess when he first got to Carolina, his family was still in Fort Worth, Texas. He'd head down to the facility to catch a workout at night, and there's Trevon Ball working, putting in the extra work. He's talented. I mean, he was talented enough to step in and hold up as a true freshman. Conditioning, natural strength, the ability to play at a high level with stamina and all that's very important for an offensive line. And he got in the full Luke Day Luke Day program all summer, unlike last offseason. So that's why he didn't play. He probably wasn't ready to go out there and play a whole bunch because of setbacks that we aren't always aware of. So there's my answer and there's your answer. I was pretty much adamant about why don't they, they shouldn't have tried him. And he was at right guard behind Torricelli Simpkins, and they didn't cross train at all last year. So that was kind of the official reason. But you want to know why he wasn't ready to go? That's why. That's why he's ready to go this year. I project him to start at left guard at 335 pounds. And that's just another example of how players can get better. and that we don't always know the why specifically. Once it gets beyond a certain point, like what you can see on film, like, oh, this guy's technique's bad, or this guy's footwork needs work, or this guy's not strong enough. You start getting into like body fat percentage. We don't know that, you know? So there you go. There's the answer, and there's reason to be excited. I mean, he's a freshman All SEC, freshman All American 2 years ago. A kid that they got out of Atlanta that was an Under Armour All American that they beat Sam Pittman in Arkansas on, who Arkansas wanted him pretty bad. Sam Pittman, of course. Say what you want about the Miller Lite drinking Razorbacks coach that bet on himself and is always on the hot seat. I love me some Sam Pittman. Sam, say what you want about him. He knows offensive line. I mean, big time. He's done it all over the place. Great recruiter on the offensive line as well. So, yeah, that's it. That was a good recruiting win for the Gamecocks. And, you got to get excited about Trevon Ball. So the defense in the scrimmage, very good. Offense, if it is a good offense, they're going against a good defense. The back seven in particular, linebackers and defensive backs looked really good. And Dylan Stewart. Now, Dylan Stewart, you kind of saw that. All right, so we saw this in the spring game a little bit, folks. He was just reeking. Nobody could block him. On the offensive line, though, in the spring game, they divided up the teams. There were some guys that sat out. I mean, there's some walk-ons out there, but he was in the backfield the whole time. Now, it has to be kind of frightening if you're whoever you are, Virginia Tech on down, that Dylan Stewart is like stronger, bigger, faster, playing like a man on a mission. He can wreak havoc. And what that does is when you're breaking in some new guys at the other three spots, there's a lot of attention on Dylan. We saw this in 2013 to a certain extent with Jadeveon Clowney, although coaching that year on the defensive line left a lot to be desired. But, Clowney only had like 3 sacks, but Kelsey Quarles had 9.5 at defensive tackle. And the reason you had to block him one-on-one because you were worried about Clowney, right? And so Dylan being a force to be reckoned with is going to impact, how others can play, even if they're not these guys at D tackle that necessarily can stymie a double team. I think some are, I think that, again, the D line's bigger too on the interior. 315, 330. Troy Pikes, who probably is going to be the fourth one. He's 295. But so was TJ Sanders. So he's that kind of guy. But, what concerns me about D tackle maybe is a little bit of depth and rotation. Once you get past those three, Troy Pikes is kind of new. You've heard some good things about him. Xavier Hardy needs to continue to work. You have Devontae Miles, who people have said some good things about at 280 or so. And last year, at D tackle, realistically, because DeAndre Jules is in and out, they really primarily, not real. I said the word realistically 137 times in the last minute. Good Lord. It's a Monday, right? Primarily, they rotated Boogie, Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, and TJ Sanders. Michael Goodwine got 162 snaps in. That was good. DeAndre Jules was kind of in that area when he was healthy. He played a lot. So they did rotate. And at the end, Rondarius Porter from Oklahoma game on will go in there and get 4 or 5 snaps a game. He's at App State where he can be a starter. Went up there with Dowell Loggins, and his brother went as well. But, so last year it wasn't this big rotating thing. But I will say this. These guys are all bigger. Bigger guys will wear down quicker sometimes. Not that they're not in good condition, but maybe that's not going to happen with Barrett and Goodwine and Brownlow Dindy. But you don't want to take that chance. You want to have as much depth as you can. So I think 2 things are going to help these guys. I think number one, having a good back seven and then number two, having Stewart on the other end. The position on defense, and I kind of, I'm feeling better about safety. Peyton Williams and David Busey are in a battle for the starting spot. I think Peyton's going to come out with it at the piece opposite DQ Smith. Could it emerge as a problematic area? Yeah, but based on the feedback, they feel like it's going to be fine there. So if there was an area where I personally would be concerned, it gets back to the same thing, and it's not based on anything I've gotten from camp or intel. My big question is how you're going to replace Kyle Kennard against the run on that other side. That's not that Brian Thomas Jr. is not capable of it, but that's the thing. Everybody from Clayton White to Sterling Lucas to everybody else has talked about with him. He's 249 pounds, 6'2", so he's undersized. Kyle Kennard, teams just didn't try to run at him a whole lot because he was just so good at pursuing and things. And then there's ways, you don't necessarily have to always have your defensive end over there. He's got to set the edge because as we found out in 2023, if you're weak at the edge, you're going to give up some yards. So that would be my biggest question mark right now. That depth at D tackle, maybe a little safety thrown in there. And then of course there's injuries. Don't want to talk about that again, but what I've done and what I know is the starters, the two deep. What I don't really know is if you start getting into the second string a whole lot, like just about, it's hard to gauge what kind of drop off there will be, right now on August 18th. But a good day for the defense. I don't have an update on special teams. I'm assuming probably going to project Mason Love, as my man Latte Lance mentions, the leg of destiny to do both jobs. But it's good to hear that Max Kelly is competing, the freshman kicker from Gallatin, Tennessee, in the Nashville area, and all that good stuff. So, game plan and all that starts in earnest. Scout team, special teams units. This is the time to figure all that out. As we are 13 days from kickoff, that will, continue on this week in Columbia, and the next week it's game week, folks. How about that? Hope and this is when it starts to drag. This week 0 week. I'm busy and trying to get stuff done work wise for the season and get stuff that it's the last week of not having a game and how to focus on and all that. So this week usually goes pretty slow. Yeah, and having to have a colonoscopy on Thursday. It's like a long march to the hospital, right? For yours truly. All right, so I'm going to talk tomorrow a little bit, most likely, unless something comes up, about kind of how I think the Hokies are going to try to play Carolina and bounce some stuff around because we're going to start to get into that. We're going to start to talk a lot of Virginia Tech, obviously, on all the shows coming up. And then next week it gets into earnest. Don't forget, on Fridays during the season before every Gamecock game, we got different coverage, right, on Chief Sports Network. Fridays will be the pregame show. Just like we did last year, it'll be the show and the morning show combined 3 hours instead of 4. So we're only doing 3 on Fridays all together. We'll have Rafael Esparza from Doc Sports. Matt Anderson will sit in for an hour just like he did last year. Our panel with John Strickland, Michael Flint, JB, Phil, myself, all sponsored South Carolina Education Lottery, just like last year. Special guests, predictions, all that good stuff. And so we're going to roll that out. Don't forget, 2 game day mornings. So Sunday morning, the Mad Dog and I will be back with the 2025 version of the Tailgate Show. It's a fun 1 hour final look at Gamecock sports with a musical soundtrack and different things like what are you eating? What do you think? What's the injury situation? And I believe unless we get thrown out for doing it, we're going to originate this from our hotel in Atlanta Sunday morning at the Embassy Suites in Buckhead. Kind of set up right there at the edge of breakfast. So live on the road, the tailgate show that starts Sunday. Rooster Rant with our late night crew, Matt Anderson and Alex Jones, will be Sunday nights. I don't know if we're doing it Sunday or Monday this year or this week or that week, next week, blah. But we'll have that as a lead into SEC Sunday night. And don't forget also, high school football kicks off all around the state of South Carolina this weekend. A lot of good games. Spartanburg Northwestern looks tasty and tantalizing. Gaffney's looking good. Shout out to the Gaffney Indians. Really played well against Dutch Fork in the Jamboree. So happy about that. And so four-quarter Friday on Friday will get you ready for that first week, and you can stream about 8 teams live on the Chief Sports app. That's a free download, Google Play, and also Apple. And then, of course, the High School Scoreboard show with Sports Talk, that crew will be on Friday nights, along with on the app now. You can get, and also on our website, chiefsportsnetwork.com, High School Scoreboard updates consistently. So if you're out at a game or if you're out of state, and you're one of our teams we stream, go ahead and stream that puppy on the app. If not, you can keep up with the scores on the app. So we're really excited about expanding high school football coverage in the state of South Carolina at Chief Sports Net. All right. Chief Sports Net, thebigspur.com, inside the Gamecocks, all that good stuff. Check it out as we continue to take all of you up until Gamecock kickoff 2025. Less than 2 weeks away, folks. This has been J.C. Shurburtt's Coffee. I'm out. Holla.
JC and Matt.